Well, good evening, folks, and welcome to our council meeting. We actually have three agendas this afternoon. We are going to be going into a special meeting of the whole that is going to be dealing with, under the public hearing under the Planning Act, application for zoning bylaw amendment, Department of Planning and Development Services, report number 2014-70. The subject is the public meeting report for a zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-1114, having to do with the east side of Brookfield Road. Members of council, it's on page 5 of your agenda. As well, we have another one. Yes, we do. We also have a second public meeting that we're going to be dealing with. This meeting being a public meeting, once again, under the Planning Act, and that being having to do with, let me get these pages backwards, guys. With report zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-1014, and that having to do with Barrack Road, 650 Barrack Road. Secondly, we're going to be entering into our committee of the whole agenda, and as you know, this meeting is going to deal with many reports that we have listed, and with that, followed by our council meeting, which we expect to ratify most of what we discussed during our committee of the whole meeting. So with that, I'm going to call upon Councillor Frank Danch for the prayer, and that will be followed by Mr. Joe Longfellow for the national anthem. Councillor Danch.
O God, from whom all good proceeds, grant to us, your humble servants, your holy inspiration, that we may set our minds on the things that are right, and by your merciful guiding accomplish them through Jesus Christ, your Son, our Lord, who lives and reigns with you in the Holy Spirit, one God, now and forever. Amen.
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all thy Son's command. Car ton bras te porte l'épée, il se porte la croix. Ton histoire est une épopée de plus brillant exploit. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
And the crowd goes wild.
Thank you, Joel. As always, a job well done.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My pleasure, as always.
Are you going to stay for the rest of the meeting, Joel?
He's got another appointment.
He has choir practice. Well, folks, I'm now going to move this meeting on to Mr. Aquilina. Dan, we are going to discuss Department of Planning and Development Report number 2014-70. The subject, public meeting, as I said earlier, for a zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-1114, regarding the east side of Brookfield Road. And once again, members of council, it's on page 3 of your agenda. Mr. Aquilina, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening to you, members of council, staff, and those in attendance this evening. As mentioned by the mayor, this application is before us this evening and is being held pursuant to sections 34 of the Planning Act. It's an application submitted by Randall Swanson for property known as part of Lot 8, Concession 5, Township of Humberstone. The explanation we follow this evening, Mr. Mayor, is I will present information regarding written notice of this meeting this evening, the notice that goes out to members of the public to inform them to come here tonight if they choose. I'll give an explanation to be followed this evening, procedure that council will have before them. I'll present the application through Planning Report 2014-70. We will then allow the applicant an opportunity to address council if he or she wishes. The council will then have an opportunity to ask myself any questions of clarification or to the applicant. We will then open up the meeting to any member of the public that wishes to address council. I will give an announcement respecting written notice of passage of the proposed application, and then an explanation of future meetings in regards to the application.
Thank you, Mr. Eklund. And before you go on, members of council, can I have a motion to confirm the agenda, please? Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Kenny, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. And is there any, or are there any disclosures? With none, thank you. Mr. Aquilina?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This meeting was given in accordance with sections 34 of the Planning Act, subsection 12, 13, and 14, and regulation 5, section 5 of regulation 545-/06. Notice was mailed to all property owners within 120 meters of the property. A sign was placed on the property, and as well, the notice was placed on the City of Port Colborne's website. This time, Mr. Mayor, I would like to present Planning and Development Report 2014-70. They'll give the details of the application. As you heard, the application was submitted by Randall Swanson. And you can see with a red dot that gives the location of the subject property. If you follow the lines which represent the property, you will see that the property actually fronts onto Netherby Road. Netherby Road is located in the city of Niagara Falls. The applicant proposed to sever off Part 1 within the city of Niagara Falls and was required as well to zone Part 2 in Niagara Falls to agricultural purposes only. The application before us this evening is to change the portion of the property within the city of Port Colborne to agricultural purposes only. It will be a site-specific zoning bylaw amendment. When the application was circulated to the public and to the agencies, we received no comments from the members, any members of the public. The following agencies did comment. The Fire and Emergency Services had no concerns. Ministry of Transportation had no objections. It was outside of their consent or their permit review. Engineering and Operations, City Engineering and Operations indicated they had no adverse comments, and they indicated if there's any access along Brookfield Road, then a municipal consent permit would be required. The region of Niagara was satisfied from a regional and provincial perspective that the application could be supported. The City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw zones the lands as agricultural, as well as the official plan designates the property as agricultural. Our policies as well speak to when there's a surplus property that the remnant tract, the lands to be held, preclude residential development. That's what the policies inform us of. And that is what is before us this evening. Mr. Mayor, that does conclude my report. I believe at this time, if the applicant is in the gallery, if he or she would like to address council, and now is the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Is the applicant in the gallery? No? Okay.
Mr. Mayor, does any member of council have any questions to myself?
Councillor Butters.
Just one. The map that is with this report is actually the Barrack Road map, and we don't have the Brookfield Road map, so I'm really glad it's up there.
Yes.
But, there was a little boo-boo.
Mr. Aquilina.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did note that myself, and I saw that this afternoon, and that's why I included the survey sketch to show you the actual property.
It's on a separate piece of paper beside you.
Okay.
Yes, but the bylaw that was in the public meeting report was incorrect. That we included the lands that are subject to the next public meeting on Barrack Road.
Okay, so that's all good.
Yes, yes.
Any further questions, members? With no further questions, Mr. Aquilina.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That does conclude this meeting under the Planning Act. I would like to read the following, even though no member of the public spoke. And as well, there is a sign-in sheet if any member of the public was shy to address council. If they would like to receive written notice, there is a sheet in the back. Please sign that, and we will ensure that you do receive notice. I'd like to make this following statement. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the city clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of passage of the bylaw will be given such notice. Mr. Mayor, what we will do is we will formulate the public meeting minutes and we'll bring a recommendation report to council at the earliest opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Members of council with no further questions or no comments or questions from the public, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Danch, Councillor Bodner, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on with our next public meeting under the Planning Act. Application for zoning bylaw amendment, Department of Planning and Development Report number 2014-71. The subject, a public meeting report for a zoning bylaw amendment, file number D14-10-14, 650 Barrack Road. Members of council, page number 9 in your agenda. Mr. Aquilina, floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Method of this meeting was given in accordance with Section 34, subsection 12, 13, and 14 of the Planning Act, and as well as Section 3 of Ontario Regulation 545/06. The application was submitted by Luciano Pombienko on behalf of Luciano and Rosemary Pombienko for property located in the City of Port Colborne being part of Lot 32, Concession 2, municipally known as 650 Barrack Road. Notice of this meeting was mailed to all property owners within 120 meters of the property. A sign was posted on the property, and as well we placed a notice on the City of Port Colborne's website. The explanation regarding this application, I will present the application through Planning and Development Report 2014-71. We will then allow the applicant to address council if he or she wishes. We will then open up the floor to any member of the public that wishes to address council. An opportunity then will be given to council to ask myself or the applicant any questions of clarification. We will then open the floor up to any member of the public that wishes to address council. I will then give an announcement respecting written notice of passage of the proposed zoning bylaw amendment and an explanation of future meetings in regards to this application. This time, Mr. Mayor, I would like to go over the application through the Planning and Development Report 2014-71. What you will see here, very finicky. What you will see here is part 1 and 2. What those lots are proposed to do are to permit single-family residential homes. Those two parts were before the Committee of Adjustment through a consent application, and it was granted approval subject to changing the zoning of the property from the current residential development zone to an R1 single-family residential zone. The reason being is that the residential development zone only permits one house on the entire property. So that was a condition of the Committee of Adjustment. So the application is before us this evening to satisfy that condition of the Committee of Adjustment. When the application was circulated for comments and when the notice was given to the public, we received no comments from the public. We did receive some comments from those agencies, and they are as follows. Fire and Emergency Services had no concerns. Engineering and Operations indicated that any cost to extend the services would be paid by the developer or the property owner. Municipal consent permits would be required for any entrances or services connected, and if a private surface is to cross a municipal road, an easement will be required. The Ministry of Transportation indicated they had no concerns that it's outside of their permit control area. The Niagara Peninsula Conservation Authority indicated that they are satisfied that the environmental natural core mapping would not be impacted by the proposed zoning change. The region of Niagara indicated they have no objections from a provincial or regional planning perspective and will rely on the City of Port Colborne's dealing with the application. The policies that affect this proposal is the following. The City of Port Colborne zoning bylaw zones the property residential development. That permits one single detached dwelling on the lot. The property is located within the urban residential designation in the official plan, which supports all forms of residential development. Mr. Mayor, that does conclude my planning report. I would like to allow the applicant an opportunity to address council, but before doing so, I would like to read the following. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision of the City of Port Colborne to the Ontario Municipal Board. If a person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions to the City of Port Colborne before the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is approved, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Municipal Board unless, in the opinion of the board, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body. Mr. Mayor, I'm not sure if the applicant is in attendance this evening, but now is the opportunity for him to address council if he so chooses.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. You're fine? Thank you, Mr. Pabianco. Mr. Aquilina?
Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask if there's any member of the public that wishes to address council.
Yes, sir. If you want to come on up and state your name, address.
Anywhere?
Right where that microphone is. And you're good to go. Welcome.
Good evening. My name's George Edwards, and I live across the road from this proposed two sites that would like to be changed with the bylaw. So, I had wanted to present a petition tonight from other property owners on Barrack Road from this property, west, where people had spent thousands of dollars putting in septic services. Okay? Because it's a different, we had brought this petition into a previous meeting when they were for subdividing, severance. It had that file number on. Because it doesn't have the new file number of this right now. Same property, same everything, different file number. Apparently I'm not allowed to. So instead of speaking on behalf of the other property owners, I'm gonna, because I don't have a petition from them, I'm just gonna express my concerns to some degree. I didn't quite catch all that was said by this gentleman. It's my understanding from the city and the engineer and talking to different staff members, the sewer line, the main sewer line, which is 260 feet from where the first lot is, which wants to be serviced by sewer. The city of Port Colborne are very much against, with my understanding, of putting a pumping station at the end of Barrack Road. And the reason they have to put a pumping station is because the end of that sewer line is so high, the fall goes the opposite way on Barrack Road. So the engineering department, as I understand it, as we all understand it, will not allow to be connected to that main sewer line unless it's a pumping station. The way we understand it, the way I understand it, if a developer comes along, now when I say a developer, if I may, let's just go back on this piece of property. This has been going on for years to develop this actual piece of property. 20 years ago, we paid, the people on Barrack Road, we paid for the water. Each person paid a share. Mine was $10,000 to go pass the water in front of our line, as of everybody else on Barrack Road. Okay? If this is going to be developed, and as a developer, this piece of property, one house was allowed to be built. Okay, I'm jumping ahead of myself. this particular piece of property was granted a severance of the original house to be severed from the rest of this property. Mr. Bianco came along, he wanted to build a house, no problem, fine. We didn't have a problem, nobody had a problem. He was granted permission to build this one house. And he put a septic service in himself, whatever you want to call it. A few months later, 2 more lots wanted to be severed. Matter of coincidence or whatever, whether he's a developer or classified as a developer or just a person want to build 2 homes, there's room for exactly 2 more lots and 2 more severances from where those 2 are right now to his house which he lives in. I'm not saying, I don't know if in the future these other lots want to be developed. Probably none of my business. What I have a problem is, and what a lot of the other homeowners have a problem is, if the city comes along and says, we're going to put sewers in there, and we know, and no question about it, our tax is going to go sky high. We know that. We've already spent thousands and thousands of dollars putting septic services in that are working fine. The majority of the homeowners from this said property west do not want sewers. We don't want the city of Port Cobham to put sewers in. We don't want that expense. If a developer, and what is a developer? Is it 3 pieces of property? Is it 2 pieces of property? I don't know. Is that 2 or is that 3 that's been developed? My understanding is if you build 3 homes, you're a developer. If a developer wants to pay for those sewers to be put in, we can't say a word. Nobody can say a word. Because of right now, this very minute, we don't know what is being done, or we didn't know until, I take it, this is going to be paid by a developer. Is that what I heard, or is this not the way it is right now?
Mr. Aquino?
Has it been decided whether the city is going to put this in, or is it decided whether the developer has to pay for it?
Mr. Aquino?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the developer has to pay 100% of the cost to service these properties.
Thank you. Mr. Edwards?
Thanks for listening to me. This is what we've been waiting for. Right to this very minute, we had no idea who was paying for this. And I just question for 1 minute, the way the committee is supposed to judge whether a severance can go through, whether it be for dividing property or anything else. How can they truly look at something without knowing all the facts? This was at the last meeting, this was okayed by that committee that they felt they should go ahead with this. How could we make our comments on this without knowing any of this? How did we know how to comment on it without knowing who is going to pay for this? The city, us, the developer? And that's why this has been going on. If this is going to be paid for by a developer, is a developer want 2 pieces of property, 3 pieces of property, with the option of maybe more? I mean, this has been going on for years. I don't want to go as far as to say this is a way in the back door, because I don't mean any harm to people, and there's no way in any way whatsoever I am attacking Lou. Absolutely no way. And I don't mean it to this. I am questioning the method of how this is done. Like, I think that committee should have known who is paying for this right up front. Is it going to be paid for by a developer? Is it going to be paid for by the city and the taxpayers? finally we got our answers, and probably there's nothing else we can say about it. So thanks for listening to me. I didn't mean to run on, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards.
Thank you.
Mr. Edwards, before you leave the podium, members of council, any questions or comments to the presenter? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just 2 points of clarification here. At the Committee of Adjustment, which I sit on, some of these same comments were made by Mr. Edwards. We answered those questions. Actually, our chair, Dan O'Hara, answered the exact question about who pays for that, and it's the developer. Anybody that was in attendance that night was told it's the developer's dollar that pays for any connections. They were told that evening. The second is with regards to taxes. And again, Chair O'Hara clarified to Mr. Edwards that if a sewer line goes in, has no impact on taxes. It's not a tax issue. It's a water and sewer issue. So those points have been clarified. So I do take exception by him standing here tonight saying the committee didn't know. We knew the facts. We had the package from staff outlining everything which is going to be done. This is within the urban boundary. These are lots that can be created in the urban boundary. This isn't country living anymore. The urban boundary goes out there. You can fill the whole road with lots if you want. And if a developer wants to come in and build a pumping station and put the sewer line in and whatever else, it's their dime. It hasn't been done because it's a very costly dime. But I do take exception by stating that only tonight he's getting this information. Mr. Edwards, that's not true. We told you that evening, and we told everybody in the audience exactly taxes and exactly who pays for this. Those were all outlined that evening. I know Councillor Kenny and Councillor Elliott were there that evening, and they'll say that's right. We made sure everything was laid on the table that night. And this isn't backdooring it. We also talked about that. This is under the Municipal Act. This guy has a piece of property within the urban boundary. He can develop it. It's no backdooring or trying to get in the back way and promises made here or there. This is no secret society up here. Everything was done by the book. You ask Mr. Aquilina. Everything is done the way it's supposed to be through the Planning Act of Ontario. We don't do anything different than the Planning Act allows us. We can't. What's presented here, what's presented to the Committee of Adjustment, that's the only way it can be done. We do lots like this all the time at the Committee of Adjustment. It's in with the urban boundary, and to be quite honest, Mr. Edwards, the province of Ontario wants all kinds of housing to go in. They want infilling. That's what they've asked for. Whether we like it or not, that's just the rules. So nothing wrong here. But again, I take exception to the 2 points you made with regards to taxes and who pays for this. You knew that evening.
Thank you, Councillor.
If I can just,
go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to offend you or anybody else. That wasn't my understanding, and I wouldn't be standing here saying otherwise if I would have understood it that way. Okay? And I'm not here to fight with council or anybody else. I just, as a layman, I was just speaking for myself. So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions, comments? Mr. Edwards, once again, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Mr. Aquilina, just a few, I think Councillor Steele touched on a few answers I wanted to try and get, but with respect to the file number, Mr. Edwards made a comment about the file number being different, and with that, the inability, I guess, to proceed in the direction he wanted to proceed in.
Mr. Mayor, the notice has the application as D14-10-14.
Mm-hmm.
That's what the notice speaks to. The Committee of Adjustment is a different application number.
Right.
So I'm not sure if that's what he's referring to, but the notice would have been sent to him in regards to this application.
Regarding both numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Dan, floor is back to you.
Any other questions, Mr. Mayor, from council to myself?
Members of council, any questions or comments? Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Worship. Through you to Mr. Aquilina. Mr. Edwards asked a couple of times about a developer. Is there a limit as to how many lots can be developed by this individual? And is he considered a developer or just an individual who has property and he's severing them and wanting to either develop them himself or have a contractor come and develop her? I think that's a legitimate question to ask about the word developer, I guess.
Mr. Aquilina.
Mr. Mayor, this property is within the city's urban area boundary, as mentioned by Councillor Steele. if I can get to the, as you can see here, it's within the urban boundary. The official plan says any development, whether it's 1 new lot, 2 new lots, 3 new lots, 5, 10, 20 new lots, requires to be on urban services, water and wastewater. The entire area you see here, it's pegged for development. The City of Port Colborne promotes that land for development. We want to have a comprehensive look at that land to kind of maximize the amount of lands that could be developed. So to call someone a developer, someone builds a garage, well, that's a developer. Someone wants to build 1 new lot or propose to build 1 new lot, that's a developer. Someone wants to do a plan of subdivision with 100 lots, that's a developer. So I think it's an opportunity that someone had that this property could possibly maximize the development potential, and the Committee of Adjustment can deal with 3 applications. So yeah, there could be 1 more application. You go beyond 3, and then you're into a plan of subdivision application. Same process, just now you need an agreement. With respect to the services that are going to be extended, that needs to be done through a development agreement. That development agreement is going to come back to council with all the particulars. So this area is one that we promote. It's a greenfield, and we want development there.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Any further questions or comments? Councillor Elliott?
Thank you, Mayor. Through you to Mr. Aquilina. Dan, should any more lots be developed west on Barrack from here, including the same piece of property where these 2 are being severed off, is there anything, if the services were run throughout Barrack Road, is there anything that is on our bylaws right now that would mandate that prior existing septic services would have to be tied in to sewer lines, or would the pre-existing homes continue to use their own septic?
Mr. Aquilina?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, certainly nothing that the City of Port Colborne would thrust upon any owner along Barrack Road. There's no bylaw that requires them to connect once that pipe is in the ground for water or wastewater. Nothing required from the City of Port Colborne. We know what happened elsewhere, but that's a different scenario with the region dictating because of the faulty septic systems they were proposing at the time, which they've walked away from, having people to connect, but that's a totally different environment. Nothing that we experience here in Port Colborne. So again, nothing required from us or anyone else that I can contemplate that's going to insist or require the homeowners along Barrack Road to connect if in fact that services is put along the road.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilina. That's fine. Councillor Bodnar?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Aquilina. If the sewer line goes across in front of properties that are not required to hook up, are they required then to pay servicing on that line even though they don't hook up?
Mr. Aquilina?
To you, Mr. Mayor, the council has an opportunity to actually have the property owners, let's say there's more development along Barrack Road and one wants to take advantage of that pipe now in the ground, there is an opportunity to get some of that money back to the actual developer that put the pipe in the ground. We've done it in the past. So there is an opportunity to do so, and we can do that through what is it could be a front-ended agreement, or it could be an agreement and a bylaw written by council that requires upon any development there needs to be a connection fee to allow the opportunity for the developer to get some of his monies back based on percentage of the frontage.
Thank you, Councillor Bodnar. And I think that's a great point. Which leads to a question. Has there been any discussion with the neighborhood to actually do that?
Mr. Mayor, not to my knowledge, no.
And the reason why I ask that question is because you're going to have a certain size line that's going to be going to that property. If in fact people want to tap in to front end this agreement, then with that, the line may have to be changed to a bigger line. And second to that, if it's already put in later on, it's too late, would it not be?
That's a good point, Mr. Mayor. I think something we can do going forward, depending upon if the zoning gets approved, is having that discussion before the development agreement is back to council in consultation with engineering. And we can notify the neighborhood if anyone is interested in doing that.
Well, and I would encourage that, you know, obviously for obvious reasons. First off is that it would be a lot less for the developer. And secondly, if that opportunity presents itself and people want to take advantage of it, then they should be able to. And with that said, then the proper infrastructure would be put in place rather than going back after the fact to expand that line. Mr. Lee, do you have any comments on that?
At this time, Mr. Mayor, no, nothing else to that effect.
Nothing. Just a question to you. With respect to the existing application, I guess it's an obvious answer, but I'll ask it anyways. If in fact people wanted to tap into that line, would the line have to be bigger?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, that's true. There are minimum sizings involved in the design of a sewer, so essentially an 8-inch line would be the minimum that engineering would approve, and the ministry would approve through the MOE approval process. That being said, that has the ability to accommodate a number of properties.
And what's the number of properties?
Well, it would depend on, first of all, the slope of the pipe, the number of homes. You're getting into a whole mathematical calculation. But
Okay.
An 8-inch line, which would be the minimum that the city would approve and the ministry would approve, would be able to accommodate quite a few homes.
Great, thanks, Chris. Great. Members of council, further questions or comments? With none, Mr. Eckley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Before I go back to you, are there any more comments from members of the public? Going once?
Yeah, may I? Can I get back?
Come on back up, Mr. Edwards. That's fine.
I'd just like to just clarify this again, because I only caught half of what they were saying. I apologize, but a developer comes in, develops this, and then he wants money to hook up for the rest, anyone else who wants to hook up. Like I said before, previously, we pay each individual, paid his frontage, and we paid for water to go in. I went to the city hall and I said, they got some stuff going across the road from me. I said, are we gonna get somebody gonna be paying into the water that we had paid for to go past this? Not a thing you can do about it. I'm sorry, it's there. That's what I was told by the city of Port Colborne. All of a sudden, what is this about if somebody else wants to hook up to that? If somebody's passing in front of me and they want me to pay for passing in front of that and I don't want it, then I shouldn't have to pay for it, right? I understand that. But if I do want to hook up and they're saying to me, well, you got to give me so much money. 20 years ago, I paid $10,000. I don't know, what's that worth now? 20, 30,000? I don't know. I don't see anybody saying to me, well, we're paying you some money. I don't see any of that. That's one piece of property plus two more possibly. Nobody's paying us. Nobody's paying me or any other people who paid up front. We paid up front. It was put on the taxes. I apologize. $1,000 a year for 10 years. Do you know what? At the end of that 10 years, do you know they never took that off? I went up to the city hall and I said, it's paid for. It should be finished. Well, that would have gone up that much anyways. I carried on paying that same amount. Like, I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but it's almost like to me that these rules are made as they go along.
That's
like,
Mr.
I understand the bylaws keep changing, and I'm ignorant to the fact of the bylaws, and I apologize. But you're looking at a taxpayer's point of view.
Mr. Edwards, got your point, and it's a good point. I want to allow Mr. Howell to actually address it, because I think you raised a good point. Mr. Howell?
Through your worship, there are a number of ways to install and pay for pipes. Under the water and sewer system, they pay for themselves. There's a local improvement charge. Pipe goes in the ground and it's assessed on both sides of the road. The charge, people can pay it right up front or they can put it over a period of time. It's a frontage charge, but it pays for the pipe. It gets added to the taxes, but it is a water charge. And it is only added to the taxes because there isn't a mechanism in the water system to add it over a period of time. That happens even yet today. Council can pass a bylaw under the provisions of the Municipal Act for local improvement. A pipe can go in the ground and someone can prepay it, commute the charge, or they can pay it over a 5 or a 10-year or a 20-year period depending on the life of the pipe. That charge gets added to the tax bill only for purposes of collection because it is a lien on the land. In this case, there is an opportunity on the water line in here, the property owners would have paid a half of that cost on their frontage. The other half is still either the city's picked it up or paid for it, or it's being carried and will be recovered at some point when somebody connects to it. There is a connection charge. That's what will happen. In the front ending provisions, if someone takes a sewer line to here, the individual pays for it. If the agreement is established and if council approves it, all the property owners get notice. If you want to connect to the sewer line, just like the water line, there's a connection charge. That connection charge will be some recovery of the cost of the installation of that pipe, which will be paid, depending on the terms of the agreement, back to the person that's paid for it.
Thank you, Mr. Howe.
Interesting. Interesting.
Okay.
And that still doesn't answer my question. Is I mean, I never got any money off it for me. You know. And that property was paid for by the people. They would also pay $10,000 for the people living in the house that was served first. Center. That first piece of property. They got stuck with the whole piece.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. Yeah. And just if you could touch on that, Mr. Howe, and I think what he's getting at is that the cost of the water pipe that went through all the properties, including this property, how is that now? How do they contribute to that water pipe with these two new pieces of property?
Your Worship, they'll have to pay a connection charge, and I can't tell you what made up the original installation cost when it went in. Under the Local Improvement Act, and I'm going to hazard a guess that that's what it was, the property owners would have paid only their portion on their side of the road in the connection, not the other side.
So there's a net balance still owing that the city's picking up that would contribute to.
I'm going to say that in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't show on the books that way because it's been financed. But in the broad scope of understanding how local improvements work, yes, the city would have picked that up. It's no different than a water line out here on Charlotte Street. A house, a vacant lot right now, they can connect to that pipe. If the service is sufficient under the old Public Utilities Act, but now under the legislation, under Water Resources Act, whatever it is, if the service in the front of the house is sufficient to connect, then they are able to connect. There is a fee, and the fee is supposed to recover the cost that's sitting outside, outstanding, or is attributable to the installation of that pipe or the value of that pipe that's been depreciated in all kinds of calculations. It's not simple. The intention would be, will the property owners get a rebate out there? No, because they won't have paid 100% of it. There will have been a cost.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. And I think that's the answer. And I don't want you to leave here, Mr. Edwards, with any loose ends. I want you to get your answer. And that's what I'm trying to drill down at. Mr. Sinez?
No, through you, Mr. Mayor, under the way the local, as Mr. Howe has mentioned, is if the pipe is going down the road, then based on frontage on either side of the property, if a ratepayer owns that property, then they basically pay on the calculation of the frontage on both sides. If it runs past city-owned property or vacant land or whatnot, then the city picks up that tab. No different than the drains, basically. So it works the same way.
So essentially, as I said earlier, in answer to your question, a lot of that contribution today for those two pieces of property are going to go to the city's, or offset the city's overall cost, or the city's contribution to that water line when it went in at that time.
We would have paid it for it up front at that time.
So there would be a development charge.
Yeah, it just comes back in. And essentially then if a property owner wants to attach to that line, then there's a charge to do that, or there's a contractor that would pay to do that, and then we have to hook up. So they're responsible for their portion to get from their house to the property line, and then the city hooks up.
Great, thanks, Peter. Mr. Howe?
Worship, I think it's quick to say, if there is 500 feet of pipe in the ground, there is 1,000 feet of frontage, both sides of the road. You would have paid your $1,000. The property across the road, even if it's vacant, would have got the same bill.
Yes.
They would have paid, so both sides.
They did.
Anybody on that 500 feet, Your Worship,
Good point.
would be able to connect after the appropriate connection charge is paid. The line would have been taken up to where the taxpayers, the petitioners, would have wanted it to. If it's going to go another 100 feet, that's paid for by the developer 100%, both sides, unless there's a local improvement charge. Or if they only want their side, they're still going to pay 100%, and council can enter into a front-ending agreement so that anybody on the other side of the road wants to connect has to pay the agreed upon percentage, perhaps half being one side of the road or the other. That's the way it works.
Thank you, Mr. Heil.
Can I ask one more question?
You sure can.
And I don't want to run on and take every, I don't know if it's the engineer department who determines where the main sewer lateral is. Nobody knows, I know roughly because we measured it. The city and the engineers are saying to us that it's too shallow to add on to that line. Does this mean, whether it be the city or a developer, does this mean there has to be a pumping station put in at the end of Barrack Road?
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Edwards. If an addition was required, as you're saying, then a pumping station would be required, because right now the existing sanitary sewer is too shallow to drain any other properties to the west by gravity.
Sir, has this been determined that that is too shallow?
Yes.
It is?
Yes.
I was told by the city that a pumping station is $1 million. Just the station alone is $1 million. You know, I leave it at that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Edwards. No, but just to clarify, Dan, it won't be the city paying for that. It'll be the developer.
Absolutely
paying
not,
for
Mr. Mayor.
Great, thank you. Dan, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. I would like to state the following respecting written notice. There is a sign-in sheet at the back, so any member of the public that wishes to receive a notice of council's decision, please sign that. Please ensure that you do. If you wish to be notified of the approval of the zoning bylaw amendment, you must make a written request to the clerk. Only those persons and public bodies that give the clerk a written request for the notice of the passage of the zoning bylaw will be given such notice. Mr. Mayor, I will bring a recommendation report forward for council's consideration at an up-and-coming council meeting. As soon as we can get the recommendation report ready, it will be before council for consideration. Mr. Mayor, this does conclude the meeting under the Planning Act.
Thank you, Mr. Aquilino.
Thank
Well
you.
done. Great job. And to all you folks that did attend both these public meetings, I thank you for your time. Mr. Edwards, thank you for your time and your comments. And as Dan said, those two reports will be coming up at a future council meeting. So with that, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Demeray, Councillor Steele, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. I'll take a 2-minute recess before we go on to the rest of the agenda. Folks, if I can re-adjourn. Members will now enter into the committee of the whole portion of our agenda this evening. I'm going to ask the clerk if there's any addendum items.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. None this evening.
Thank you, Ms. Gregg. And the motion to confirm the agenda, please. Mover and seconder, I have Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Steele. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any disclosures of interest this evening? With none? Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to declare a conflict of interest, non-pecuniary. I'm a member of Branch 56 Royal Canadian Legion, and this deals with Poppy Week, so I will be voting on that.
Thank you. I've seen that hand kind of go up and down and up and down. You were hesitating there for a second. Took the high road, did you? Thanks, Barbara. Any further conflicts? Members of council, I'm going to ask you if you have any items you'd like to lift this evening. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. Number 7 and number 18.
Not 18. Mr. Lambie said don't lift it.
Oh, don't lift it?
Yeah, it's not going to be.
Oh, okay.
That's
okay.
fine.
So just number 7.
Yeah, Mr. Lambie's decided he's going to let the
Wait.
recommendation go.
Okay, thanks.
It's number 7. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 10 for the conflict.
Councillor Elliott.
Item 5.
Members, further items? With none, if I can have a motion to accept the remainder of the items, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We have a few presentations this evening that I'm going to make from the podium. You guys made a mess of my stuff here, Dan. By the way, I do have to say, Mr. Heil, welcome back. I know you were gone for, what, 3 weeks now? 3 weeks traveling around the world. And we're all thinking about you.
Your Worship, I have to add, it's so nice to be home.
Well, welcome back, Bob. It's great to have you back. Members, it's my pleasure this evening to recognize a few individuals, not only from our community, but from across the Niagara region. A presentation that I'm extremely proud to make, because I know how hard these individuals have worked throughout their time in their individual disciplines, in their individual sports that they represented us in Canada for on behalf of the province of Ontario. And it's my pleasure this evening to present the participants who did participate in the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games. Pretty impressive, quite frankly. Very impressive. And with that, to welcome these members of Team Ontario, who traveled to Vancouver, British Columbia this past summer to participate in the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games. And I have to say, guys, it's a privilege. It's an honor, actually, to be here on behalf of all those folks watching on Cogeco, our community here at the City of Port Colborne, and I can even extend and expand out to those members of the community throughout the entire region of Niagara, and even the province of Ontario, who you in fact represented. And you did that representing the province of Ontario at the national level, and that's something that you should be extremely, extremely proud of. You earned the right, by being successful at the provincial games, to be called champions. And to earn a berth at the provincial games, athletes, members of council, must succeed at regional qualifiers. And these athletes, their coaches, their family, their friends, have worked extremely hard year-round to achieve the level of excellence needed to become a member of Team Ontario. We had participants in aquatics, swimming, golf, and for the most part, again, and I have to say this again, I have to repeat myself, I've seen you guys work. I've seen you practice. I've seen how much time, blood, sweat, and tears you put into your sports. And I'll tell you, it's just so commendable to have you wearing that hardware around your neck on behalf of yourself, but equally as important, on behalf of the people that put you there, your coaches, your friends, your family, and of course, the entire province, if not the entire nation. So with that, I'm going to call each individual athlete up, and I'm going to read it, the first certificate in its entirety, but after that, I'm going to read each certificate with respect to the sports each individual represented the province of Ontario with. So the first is presented to PJ Bolger. Where's PJ? Come on up here, PJ. PJ, in recognition of your outstanding contribution during the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games, participating in the Level 4 Stroke Play 9 Hole Golf after receiving the gold medal in Division 1 at this year's Provincial Summer Games. May I extend congratulations on behalf of members of City Council, but most importantly, PJ, on behalf of each and every resident of the City of Port Colborne. Your dedication and commitment to your sport reinforces the value evident throughout our community. Best wishes in your future. Great work, PJ. Congratulations. Good job. Sheila, did you get a picture? Did you get one? Did you? And I have to say, I kind of had to take a second look on this next individual because I said to Bob, I says, is that Mike Trojan way back there? It is Mike Trojan. So Mike, to you and your family, welcome to the chamber. Mike, it's the first time I've seen you without a tie on. Feels really good. But this is someone, and I've members of council, you'll know Mike Trojan was a CAO for the region for many, many years. Not long enough, in my opinion, by the way, but for many years. And I heard Mike often talk about this superstar he had at home. And she's here with us today, so I feel privileged to have Tess here. And so I like to call Tess Trojan up here. Tess, in recognition of your outstanding contribution during the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games, receiving a first place finish in the level 4 stroke play 9-hole golf. And as I said earlier to PJ, it's an honor to be here on behalf of our community to congratulate you, and to you as well. Best wishes in your future. Tess, great job. A big hug. Well done. Well done. And I have to say this. Tess earned her gold medal after golfing 3 rounds against the best in the country. Tess was fortunate to be successful enough at golf to earn the right to represent Canada at the World Games in Los Angeles in 2015. Tess, great job. Well done. Tess, help. My golf game is absolutely terrible. Okay. So Mike, if I can borrow her next year sometime in the July, August time here, you know, she doesn't throw clubs in the canal. I'm not going to live that one down, am I, Sheila? No. If I can now call upon Eric Robbins. Eric, where are you? Eric, come on up. Eric, in recognition of your outstanding contribution during the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games, receiving a first place finish in aquatic swimming, 4x25 meter freestyle relay, and participating in the 25 meter freestyle, the 50 meter backstroke, and the 100 meter backstroke, and the 25 meter backstroke. Would you have a week rest after that, or what? But to Eric, great job, and once again, we're all extremely proud of you, and best wishes in your future.
Thank you.
Good job. Good job. Well done. Well done. If I can call upon Jody Ohm. Now, Jody, no stranger to the chamber. And no stranger with learning that hardware either. I know you got a whole bunch of those at home, eh? Jody Ohm, in recognition of your outstanding contribution during the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games, receiving a first place finish in aquatic swimming, a 50 meter freestyle, a third place finish in aquatic swimming, 25 meter backstroke, and participating in the 25 meter backstroke, the 25 meter freestyle, and the 4x50 meter freestyle relay. I just get tired saying that. Wow, good for you. Congratulations, man. Great job. If I can now call upon John Erbschaz. John, come on up. And this is presented to John Erbschaz in recognition of your outstanding contribution during the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games. These lists are getting bigger. Receiving a first place finish in aquatic swimming, 100 meter freestyle, and aquatic swimming, 4x25 meter freestyle relay, a third place finish in aquatic swimming, 25 meter freestyle, and aquatic swimming, 50 meter freestyle, and participating in the 100 meter freestyle. Well done. Great job. Congratulations. Good stuff. Good job. Members of council and those watching on Cogeco, the qualifiers for the next provincial games in swimming will be held this spring, and golf will be in 2016. The athletes, guys, great job. You all did great, and quite frankly, I'm sure you're all back in training now. Is that true? You're all back training now and preparing for the next qualifier. But in order for you to train successfully, you need a great coach, don't you? Hey? Why don't all you guys come on up here? All you athletes, come on up here. Come on up here. All you guys come on up here. Now, like I said to you guys before I started, I said that I'm here on behalf of members of City Council, as well as the community that are watching on Coach Go, and all those folks that you see on a daily basis throughout your community that's plugging for you, whether it be here in Port Colborne or across the region. So now I think it would be very important that not only I, on behalf of them, but we, as a team, present to someone who I'm sure is very special, this certificate. And this certificate is presented to Sheila Bolger in recognition of her outstanding contribution during the 2014 Special Olympics Canada National Summer Games for training and providing unconditional support to our Ontario athletes. Come on up here, Sheila. Now we're going to present Sheila together, okay? All you guys take a piece of that. All you guys take a piece of that, and we're going to present this to Sheila. Sheila, congratulations. Thank you. How about a big thank you, guys?
Thank you, Sheila.
Great job, Sheila. Do you want to say anything, Sheila? Do you want to say anything?
Thank you all the time, don't you?
Sheila? That's right. No, we just they worked hard. I was very proud of them all and had a great time up there.
Good.
Good results.
Good job, guys. Well done. We're all proud of you. And finally, folks, I do want to take this opportunity as well to thank the families. To thank the families and the friends who have and continue to give these athletes your support. There's no question that along with Sheila and of course the support that she gives, I'm sure on a regular basis, the support that the families and the friends and the neighbors and the overall community give to the athletes too, unconditionally. I also want to thank all you folks for actually giving them the ability to do what they love and of course bring back this hardware, these medals that makes us so proud from within the city of Port Colborne and of course throughout the region of Niagara. And I do want to thank you for coming out this evening as well and showing your support. And I look forward to seeing, although I may not be sitting in that chair, I look forward to still seeing you folks and as well as the athletes come back next year with a whole bunch more medals and of course a whole new reason for us to be very proud. So good on you guys, good job, and congratulations once again. I will now move on to the Regional Councilor's report. Are there any questions for the Regional Councilor? Councilor Barrick is not in attendance, and I'll accept any questions as your other Regional Councilor. Comments, questions, everything's good? Okay, moving on to Councilor items, new business. Are there any Councilor items, new business? Councilor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. Just one. I'm not exactly sure who to direct it to. I got a call from a concerned resident that I'll take it CNP or Ontario Hydro is putting in new poles and new lines down Omer Street. The concern was they completely chopped down 5 trees on the south side of Omer Street and removed the canopy from in front of all those houses. A, I don't know who to direct it to, was that necessary? B, is there a replacement program in place to replace some of those trees? And C, was there anything wrong with the trees? Is that why they were chopped down, or is it just for a matter of fact that they were in the way of the new lines? And I would like to know if there's any other replacements in place that CNP is going to do with new poles, new lines throughout the city that require the complete removal of trees. I took a drive past, and if I was living in one of the houses that these were affected by, I'd be rather upset with what happened. So if somebody could give me an answer on what happened and why.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott. We will check into the MC request from CNP and verify the tree replacement requirements that may go with that. That being said, CNP is in an active role right now of doing a number of line upgrades that have been delinquent within their system that they've inherited. And there will be more coming forward, but we will be keeping an eye on it.
Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through to Mr. Lee. Will they let us know if there's tree removal going to take place? I don't know if anybody got a heads up this was going to happen, or if this is in retrospect. But if there's going to be trees in the way that we need to completely cut down, if we could have a heads up on it, just to let people know, residents know that the trees are going to be removed in front of their properties. I don't know if the ward councilors got any calls about it, but when I drove past, I was quite shocked at what happened.
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Elliott. Yes, we can certainly do that, and as a matter of fact, we'll make a notation of that.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Further councillors items? Councillor Danch?
And I'll say, I'm not sure if I'm going to Harry or to the operation side of things, but the second door in going into the Vale Center there, notice there I'm back on the ice again. You can probably tell by seeing that.
Actually,
but, but
You're slow as ever. Still faster than me.
whatever, you can. But that second door is just, it seems to be staying open all the time. I don't know if it's a hold open feature on the door, but going in, those doors don't open well. For a brand new facility, they should kind of open like my store. Perfect. They're really don't operate all that well. If you guys could maybe have a peek at them there and maybe get the contractors back in there.
Great, thanks, Frank.
Thank you.
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we will certainly have a look at that. I know they've been having issues with some of the doors sticking, and we will take care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Councillor Danch. Councillor Kenny?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a further comment on Councillor Elliott's comments about the trees on Omer. I put a complaint in from the owners on property on the north side as well, because GAMS are the ones that contract for CNP, and they absolutely butchered the trees in that area. No, I mean, you know, come on, you're in there to trim and to make way for the hydro line, which I totally understand. But, and it was an absolute mess. And I did send it off to Ron Hansen, and he said he was going to find out some information for the homeowners. But those trees, if we get a wind now, they're so lopsided to the north that they're going to topple right on top of their houses because they've cut so much off from the south side. It is a mess. I mean, I understand it has to be to keep the hydro lines free, but there's a limit to how they can do that, and they did a terrible job, and they should be told about it. You can't fix it now because all the limbs are chopped off, and they left debris all over that the residents cleaned up, not GAMS.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Demering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have two items this evening. One is really a very good news item. I have a check that I'm going to be passing along to Peter for $15,000. It's written out to the East Village Action Committee and in care of the City of Port Colborne because we let it be known that it's going into the park fund. So I'll happily turn this over. It's a great day for all of us and for our little park, which will get another lift. And on that note, our park is looking great. Thank you very much, Chris, and all of your guys. It's really looking wonderful over there. That's one item. That was a nice one. This next one is one that I just, it's been bothering me for some time. I've been thinking about the effects the Nyon development could have, to our services in the future. And in particular with budget time coming around, I was thinking, wow, it would be a wonderful thing if the new councillors, the new council would be fully armed with the kind of information that they need to make good budget decisions. And I think one of those pieces of information, or at least two of those pieces of information, should be a report from both Mr. Hansen and from Chief Cartwright, just outlining what the likely impacts are going to be financially to Public Works and to emergency services, because I would think they're going to be pretty astronomical, and I think that the next council should be fully aware of that, and it's time for us to be better informed. So I'm requesting those reports.
Mr. Howell, do you want to comment on that?
Not at this time, Your Worship. Short answer.
Members of Council, we do have a recommendation to come back with two reports. I'll take that. Go ahead.
Your Worship, we're bringing back a report to the council meeting on December the 15th in respect of all of the issues. From your last direction at the last meeting of council, Your Worship, was for staff to continue with the discussions and the negotiations in respect of those matters which were outstanding as outlined in the report that is public. Those discussions are ongoing. There's another discussion, a meeting on Friday. I'm going to tell you right now that we can't, at this point, identify the what-ifs. We simply don't know what the what-ifs are in respect of some of those things which Councillor Desmarais is suggesting. That needs to be detailed yet once we finalize those negotiations. They're not finalized yet, so we can't bring any more back.
Councillor Desmarais.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to Mr. Heil, will those what-ifs impact us in 2015? Because if they are going to, then we have to do something budget-wise.
Mr. Heil.
Your Worship, this is no different than the question that was asked before. This is a developer. There will be costs for this developer to install the services that are required for road access. All of that stuff is the cost to the developer and not to the city. There is an issue in respect of ongoing services after. I know the fire chief expressed some concern. Those matters yet are not detailed sufficiently to even begin to tell you that. We don't know that there will be any requirement in the city in respect of fire services. We don't know what the requirements are for the 56 tank fuel depot, storage, whatever you want to call it. We don't know what the requirements are going to be for the pipe that goes from Dock 10 under the canal. All of that stuff is being reviewed by the Technical Standards and Safety Association of Canada, and we understand that it's all meeting with their requirements, which I believe are the highest, but I can't comment because we just don't have the details. Right now it's paper going back and forth that says, yeah, these are working and this is going to happen and all of that. We can't begin to give it the details. I can't, it's not the no, it's the how. I can't tell you how we can do that. It just isn't working. I just don't have the details to do that.
Thank you, Mr. Howe. Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess what I was hoping was to have some idea as the agreement stands now, if that were to go forward as it is, how would that impact us? That's what I'm asking for. We're about to order another piece of, a large piece of fire equipment with a big dollar figure attached to it. That tank size may in fact want to be changed if we're going to respond to something like a tank farm emergency. We may not be ordering the right equipment. These are things that we could probably anticipate somewhat and make a decision now to make a change or something. I just feel that there are some things that we should be better prepared for.
Thank you, Councillor. And I'm assuming that's going to be in the December 15th report?
Not in that kind of detail, Your Worship. Not yet. We just don't have the. For example, any kind of fuel depot generally has to have their own fire department. That may be the case here. We don't know yet. We're not sure. If you talk to Exxon or those things, federally, they have to have their own firefighting services. We don't know what's going to be here. We just don't have the details yet. And the agreement as it stands right now is not finalized to be able to tell you. We have set December the 15th as the date. And either there's movement on both sides or movement on one side, or the report we're going to bring you is perhaps maybe not as positive as what somebody may hope.
Okay, Councillor Butters.
Well, I'm going to just jump in here because Councillor Desmarais and I are on the master fire plan, and so for myself as well, I think it is important that we know what we may be facing, because to be prepared for whatever scenario does unfold, and we don't. And I agree with you, Mr. Heil. We don't know what that all entails, but we also can't stick our head in the sand and say, well, it could be this. We have to have some idea of how responsible we are going to be as a city in terms of responding to an emergency situation, what responsibility could be on us, what we are going to take on and what we're not going to take on, more importantly, if that's what it boils down to. So I think that we do need to have some thought process around this so that the new council is going to be very well equipped to deal with whatever is going to come along the pike.
Okay, any further questions or comments on that? Mr. Howe.
Your Worship, we're working very closely with the fire chief, with the director of engineering and the director of planning to make sure that they're aware of every step of what we're doing. We're keeping them, they're even saying, well, what about? Well, we don't know the what abouts yet, Your Worship. As soon as we get any answers to what about, we're going to be informing this council.
Thank you. Councillor Butters?
Is part of that process this council determining what a position should be based on whatever facts surround this? Like how much direction would you need as the city manager from this council to lay the course?
Mr. Howe?
Your Worship, once the transaction completes, let's assume that the decision is made to follow through and complete the deal. There is another development process, a development agreement that has to come back to this table. You will have, not this council, the next council will have full opportunity to review and debate those issues surrounding all of the services that this city may or may not have to supply.
Councillor Butters, go ahead.
Thank you. I just don't want us to get, I don't want anybody around this table to get stuck in a position that says, well, since this decision gets made, then that makes us have to make this other decision. I want to have like all the information before I get both feet in the crap pile.
Okay. Councillor Demery, same issue?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, and I would also agree with what Councillor Butters has just said. Just to be sure that when that report does come forward to the next council, that dollar figures are included, and not huge approximates, but as close to reality as possible.
Thank you. Same issue, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand we want to have all the information and you want to know exactly where we're going, but right now the deal's only conditional. Second of all, if it firms up and this in fact does come to fruition, we're literally talking years down the road before construction starts and this gets built. So I mean, we're going to have lead time. It's not just going to get the deal done and the next day there's going to be a tank farm in place. You're going to have a whole lot of issues to go through before that takes place. Site plan, construction, it's going to have to go to tender. There's a lot of things that are going to have to happen before we start spending money again. That's the only thing I'm saying. There's a process. You take a look at how long the process is just for developers to build buildings, let alone an entire tank farm. You've got a pipe that's going to have to go into the ground. You're going to have to first build a dock in the canal before that oil even comes. To even build a dock in the canal would take, I don't know how long for them to build. So I mean, there's a process of time. I'm going to throw it out to Dan, maybe even Chris, if you guys want to comment on a time period that this is going to take. I mean, for this to come to fruition and start having oil flow, best guess scenario, should everything just kind of sail along right now, what's your best guess at up and running time?
Gentlemen?
Mr. Mayor, I would say it's going to take some time.
You know, I was going to say something, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to leave that one to you. Okay, Councillor Steele on that.
Careful what you say, Councillor Elliott. This won't take as if all the T's are crossed, all the I's are dotted, everything leaves this room, and the deal's done. You'll watch. This project will proceed if what I'm hearing with regards to the new pipeline coming east with Irving Oil out in New Brunswick, that's going to happen a lot faster than we all think. Because the Gateway project is almost on its deathbed in BC. The US is holding up the Keystone project. This line coming east, which already exists, there's a line already there. And there's some tweaking. And they're talking about the Lakehead being used. They're talking about into Quebec. They're talking about down to Irving with their brand new, or fairly brand new refinery. If what you're hearing in this project is just one of those pieces along the way of that whole scenario from west to east, it may happen a lot quicker than you think. So I'm just saying, be careful, because it was amazing. CTV had a great news item on it. It was a longer issue, and they had all the players. It's been in the National Post, all those things. Huge oil east is the big thing. Big jobs coming to the east if everything goes through like we've seen in the west. So things, according to Irving Oil and the other people that are involved, things have to move fast. You've got a federal government that's in favor of this. You've got most of the provinces that it's going through in favor of this. So I think you may see it happen a lot quicker. So I just saying, once it walks out that door and it's a done deal, I'm not saying the shovel will be in the next day. Pretty darn close, though.
Thank you. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. All the more important that we know exactly what our city and our emergency fire department will be responsible for, what we will ultimately be responsible for. That's why this is incredibly important for us to know what it is we would or could be responsible for. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Further new business, members of council. Councillor Steele. Hold on. Do you want something on that? Just before that, Councillor Light, go ahead on that.
I've been wrong on a lot of things before, and if I'm wrong on this one, I would really like to be wrong on this one because of what it means to the city. Sure. I'm just thinking of the sheer scope of the size of it. I don't know how long it would take to get built, because I mean you're talking a long period of time from shoveling the ground to completion of the project. But if it's going to happen sooner than later, sooner is always better.
Thank you, Councillor Elliott. Different issue, members of council, new business, Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. And I would ask that yourself, Your Worship, and councillors bear with me on what I've got to say this evening. 17 years I've sat here. It's my last term. Thank you for all the good times and some of the bad times, but it's been great. I think I'll say more in November when our last meeting comes up about that. But prior to running for council, I was involved with the Port Colborne JCs. We used to run the candidates nights. We ran them at Port High. We ran them at Lockview in those days. I've been involved in politics all my life, even before I could vote. I campaigned for MPs, MPPs. I used to help my neighbor for city council a little bit. First election in 17 years, I have never heard the misinformation, the accusations, and quite frankly, the lies going on the campaign trail. Lies about city staff. One that was put on a post by a mayoral candidate. Staff are lining their pockets. Staff are lining their pockets. What a slap in the face to the staff of the city of Port Colborne. People that work for the taxpayer every day, and I think do a hell of a job. With regards to the way council operates, budgeting, projects, taxes, debt, I'm going to get into all this tonight, so bear with me. I really sat the other day, told my wife, I won't say the word, but I wish I was into this. But I'm not running, so what I have to say tonight doesn't have any bearing on me as far as what I'm not knocking on the doors as a candidate. But I've had it up to here. I've had constituents stop me at the Sobeys. I call it the AMP, but it's Food Basics, AMP when I grew up. Come to my office, call me, see me on the street. What's going on? What about this? What about that? Again, I'll be in a little bit more detail in a minute. I explained to them This is the way it is. And they kind of take a step back and go, then why are people lying to me at the door? Why am what I'm reading in pamphlets and newspaper articles? Like, why did, I said, because they're trying to get elected. I said, however, the unfortunate part about it is, and I'll speak on my behalf, and I'm sure I can speak on everyone around this table. I've campaigned with you. I've campaigned against you, David, which we have. I mean, that's part of the campaign. But I've helped candidates around the table. Evo, a number of years ago, when he was running the year Jack, Roy, and I were acclaimed. You're out there selling yourself to sit and have the honor by your constituents to sit in one of these chairs, whether it's here, where the mayor sits, or where the regional councillor sits. But to trash people with the crap out there, I'm beside myself. And to be quite honest, I sat at a family dinner on the weekend, and it's amazing what people are talking about and how they're absolutely disgusted on what's going on. So, through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Senez. First question. Has our debt quadrupled? It's in the paper. It's on a pamphlet. Has our debt quadrupled?
Mr. Senez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it hasn't.
Okay. So, yeah, I'll stop you there.
Okay.
No, stay up, because I got more.
Oh, okay.
The answer is no, it hasn't quadrupled. I had a gentleman at I apologize, Food Basics, came up and asked me about that, specifically about that. Like, what is it, you know? So I said, I looked at him and I went like this. I said, I'd be in jail if our debt quadrupled. We have, Mr. Senez, a 25% cap, provincially mandated, correct?
On net revenues, yes.
We have a self-imposed 20%, correct?
Correct.
What is our debt today?
Mr. Senez?
Today,
approximately,
our debt is at 5.5%, and with the debt that will be issued within the next year on some of the new projects that were approved by council, it'll be up to about 6.4%.
So 6.4% of our budget pays debt. 6.4.
Mr. Senez?
Correct.
Not quadrupled.
Correct.
Misinformation. That's one of the biggest I get out there. 6.4%. Probably, if not, I think, one of the lowest in the region. It's got to be. Because I remember about a year or so ago, maybe even 2 years ago, we were about 9%. Correct, Mr. Sedez?
2000.
Back in about 06, 07, it was around 9.
We were around 9%.
9%. We've actually gone down, people. Gone down. That's not quadrupled. You know, it's unfortunate because the young gentleman that says that was here and then decided to leave. I guess he maybe heard I was going to stand up and speak. I don't know. Commercial taxes. Another candidate says that we have the highest commercial taxes in the region. Mr. Senez, I actually came to see you with regards to this because I didn't believe it myself. I know we get the charts every year. We sit here at budget time, and it's unfortunate some candidates decided not to come out to budget, and that really bothers me that, you know, I've stood here year after year urging people during budget, especially our beginning meetings, come on out, get out here, come on and get part of the process, find out really what goes on in budget. And actually I see a gentleman that comes out quite often to our budget process. We get one or two people. I mean, it is disturbing. I know people are busy, but my God, that's important. The budget is the most important thing we do. That sets your tax rates, and you know, we all pay taxes. Staff pay taxes, we pay taxes. We're not just going to arbitrarily add huge numbers to it because I don't want to pay any more taxes. I want to pay less taxes. However, things have to get done. So with regards to that, the report that was referred to in one of the statements was regards to we have got the highest commercial taxes. Again, Mr. Senez, that's not true, is it?
Mr. Senez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, through the BMA study that's 2013 that's put on by the region, our commercial for office buildings is at the mid-level, at the lower end of the mid-range. Neighborhood shopping, which is your shopping malls, we only have one, is at the low end of a high, and motels are at the low end.
So our downtown core, Main
Downtown
Street
core would be mid.
At the mid to
Yes.
low end of the mid. So we're not the highest. Somebody takes one little line out of a report, and as my good friend Councillor Butters says, figures can lie and liars figure. You know, to do that and put that out there to the public again, it's an injustice. It's not telling them the truth. Tell them the truth. Sell yourself. Tell them what you're going to do different if you want to do something different. God knows I have over the past. My biggest issue was the Valet Center, community center, which I called it in the day. And I fought hard. I almost got beaten a couple elections over it. But we built it, to be quite honest, little or no debt to the taxpayer. Most of it was paid for. I thought that was a pretty good achievement by council and by those citizens that wanted it. But that's something I wanted as a councillor, because I was being pushed by a lot of people in this town. We had to replace those aging facilities. But whether you like that or not, there was people on both sides of the fence. I respected both, as long as they were giving facts and not misinformation, which we knew a lot came out of. Mr. Sinez, our taxes in Port Colborne, are they the highest in the region?
Mr. Sinez?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, they're not.
Whereabouts are we, Mr. Sinez?
We're about the low end of a mid-range.
So we're low end of the mid-range. So there's a lot of communities in Port Colborne, in Niagara, that are a lot higher than us.
Correct.
So we're in pretty good shape, I would think.
I'd say so.
Okay. Always can do better, yes. I won't argue that. We can always do a little bit better. But we're pretty tight with our money, aren't we?
When we go through the budget process, yes, council's very tight in what they look at and what are very, cognizant of the increases that we do look at and what they entail.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Snitz. Low taxes. Not the lowest, not the highest. We're pretty low, though. I think that's pretty good. And I think the people at home sitting watching need to hear that. Our debt hasn't quadrupled. In fact, our debt ratio is lower than it was in around 2006, 2007. We're at 6.4%. And that's with some money that are coming on with regards to projects that are coming out. This is my next. Mr. Lee. Mr. Lee, we've done a lot of projects over the last number of years. I'll say the last 17 years because I've been involved in voting on every project. We've done quite a bit. Let's go back further. Approximately when did the city of Port Colborne, I'm going to go back to water, sewer, stormwater projects, because we've done some now, but that basically started in around what year, Mr. Lee?
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we started replacing PVC water mains in the early 70s.
Okay, in the early 70s?
Yeah.
And those were replacing pipes back to what era?
Back to the 20s.
1920s. 1920s. Finally, in the 1970s, somebody woke up and said, hey, whatever's in the ground's not going to last forever. Now, mind you, we think PVC could last forever, but we still don't know. But it's going to last a heck of a lot longer than cast iron and some of the cement products that are there. So, Mr. Lee, how many projects have we done over the last number of years where we've been able to take our dollar and garner more money from upper tier governments to complete those projects?
Mr. Lee?
Approximately how many projects? Or can you maybe name a bunch? Because I think people will realize once you name them where they were.
The list is quite extensive.
That's fine. I've got lots of time today.
Maybe the most recent, the one that was decided by council to debenture, which is included in the 6.4%, is the $800,000 to match the $2 million that the province is giving us for the water main looping. That is currently out to be tendered in 2015.
That's the Lakeshore project.
Correct. The Main Street CIP scenario, that had 2/3 funding from other government levels. That was a $4.2 million project, so I'll let everybody else do the math on that alone. Another one would be the Catherine Street water main. The city partnered with the region on that, and the city only paid 20% of the $2 million cost to build that water main.
20% of $2 million.
Correct.
And it stopped a lot of leaking, right, Mr.
Very
Lee?
much so. Thank you. Yes. The list goes on and on. The CSO program, we've been actively involved in with funding from different levels of government since 2008. We get 50% funding on all of the dollars that the city spends on that. The skate park. 20% of the budget for the skate park is done through donations, and the debt did not come out of the city's budget. Something that is probably not well known. We have a new proposed program right now that staff has just applied for, which has 2/3 funding from multiple levels of government, and that is a $7 million project in the Nickel area, which would involve new storm sewers. And if we get funding for that, then these are the types of projects that we tend to undertake now.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Thank you, Your Worship. Because I can go back to when I first got elected, we did a huge project called the Colburn Street Watershed. Councillor Doucette can remember that. Mr. Lee, of the Colburn Street Watershed, that was another project we were able to partner with upper levels of government, and we were able to pay for it fully, but only using our dollar plus approximately, I believe it was 2/3 of upper tier government funding, somewhere around that number.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that is correct.
2/3. That goes back to the late 90s. I can remember when I bought my building down the street here where my office is, Catherine Street was pulled up, the pipe pulled out of the ground was put in when my great-grandfather was mayor in the 20s. 1920s, this is the years of 2000, this is the 2000s, and we're replacing 1920s pipes. You know, I'm not going to throw dirt at past councils. They decided to do what they wanted to do. We decided at this table, some of you have been here, some of you weren't here, we had older councillors, and I think it's a slap in their face by some of the comments I'm hearing out there, what I'm reading in the newspaper, what I'm getting put at my door. I think it's a slap in their face. We've taken a charge of worst first. Through your worship to Mr. Lee, unless something happens where it's an emergency that something has to be repaired quickly, we pretty much stick to our worst first scenario on roads, water, sewer, wastewater, things like that.
Mr. Lee.
To you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's correct.
Thank you. Mr. Lee, don't sit down.
Councillor.
In your opinion, staff does a great job in searching out upper tier levels of funding that come along, programs that come along where applications can come to this council, we can approve it, even though we technically haven't approved the money at that point because there's deadlines. Majority of the time we support those, but you guys work very hard to try to do that, to try to make that dollar of taxpayers' money into $3 or $4 to finish a project. Is that a true statement?
Yes, that is. We make every effort to gain every grant fund, every subsidized dollar that we can.
Councillor.
Thank you, Your Worship. Back in the late 70s, early 80s, interest rates were some of the highest ever in the province of Ontario, if not across Canada and the United States. 18, 19%, people were losing houses. That's the kind of money when the city borrowed back then, if they didn't have full funding for a project, they paid huge. What goes on today, and it's happened in the last approximately 10 years, the lowest interest rates basically in anyone's living memory of this province. 3-4%, I think, through your worship to Mr. Snez, 3 or 4% is the approximate that we pay on interest on our debentures.
Mr. Snez.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, 2.7 to 3.7.
2.7 to 3.7%. You can't get money that way. So if somebody is going to give me $2, I throw in my buck. It's going to cost me a little bit more to borrow the money to get a project done. We say it's worst first. We're going to do a water line. We're going to do a sewer line. We're going to do storm water. We're going to fix a road. We're going to build a new building, and we can afford it. It's not going to kill us. We've proved it's not going to kill us. We've gone from 9 to 6.5% or 6.4% on our debt ratio. This council has been very forthcoming on spending that money. And it hasn't been done willy-nilly just to spend money. This council has never spent a dime that it didn't believe needed to be spent because what we were doing at the time was costing us more money. And this Catherine Street project that was done over here cost this city a ton of money in lost water a year. A ton of money. That pipe was so old it had more leaks in it than a sieve. You know, call city staff. Get the information. We do that on a day-to-day basis. So if one of you people out there that don't sit around the circle, I mean, somebody's going to replace me in this seat. Obviously, somebody's going to replace Vance because he's not running for mayor. They're going to call staff on a regular basis. We all do that. We give questions, we get our answers. Sometimes we just talk about it between staff, but it may be brought to this table, or it may be brought to budget, or it may be brought to strategic planning. But what really gets me is the lies, the misinformation, the BS that has gone on during this election. And it's not right. It isn't, ladies and gentlemen. I think it's a slap in your face. In speaking with senior staff, our whole staff complement is upset about what's being said. And as I said earlier, these people do their damnedest for our taxpayer. And you guys see the stuff that comes in every once in a while. We hear sometimes the complaints, which is good. If there's a complaint, let's fix what's going on. But a heck of a lot of times it's a nice note to our staff down at the yard, to our staff at City Hall. What a great job. They helped me in a sewer line problem, and a water problem, hole out in front of their house in the road, whatever it may be. We've seen those in the last number of years. And actually they've gotten more and more. I don't know if just people send out more emails or what it is, but I think it's good, and I think it's good for our staff. Are we all perfect? No. Is every candidate perfect? No. But I'll tell you, once you sit here and you realize what has to happen in the city of Port Colborne and how dear those dollars are. When we argue about a $100 item, a $1,000 item, a $50,000 item, a $6 million item during budget, because you don't want that tax rate to go up, so it's going to kill your taxpayer that he can't afford to live in their house, or they can't afford to live in their house. But our taxes on the whole, in my time in 17 years, I know they haven't gone up more than, on average, around 3%. We had four or five years that they went up 0. And Councillor Kenny will remember that. 0 tax rate increases back in the late 90s to the 2000s.
Under 2%, though.
Pardon?
Under 2%.
Under 2%. Inflation has been around 3% for a number of years. We've all seen that. 5% a little bit earlier in the late 90s to early 2000s. We've been able to come under most years under that. Some years we have gone up a little bit more, but we try to pull that back the next budget so as to not break our taxpayers. I got I apologize because I made my wife keep it. I got my final tax notice the other day, and it was said that Port Colborne has a $1,700 and change average tax cost in Port Colborne. I'm looking, I go, there's no way. It's around, and through your worship to Mr. Sinez, $1,200 and some odd dollars is our average tax rate. Tax cost.
Through you, Mr. Mayor.
The city's portion.
Yeah, based on the average assessment of about $170,000 a home, it's about $1,268.
$1,268. My city portion of taxes is $1,936. I remember that. I don't live in a mansion, but in my house the value is higher than what the average is in Port Colborne. So I'm looking at this going, well, I mean, I'm either getting a bargain or somebody's not telling the truth here. And I know I'm not getting a bargain because I know I'm paying the right tax amount. I know it's not $1,700. I'm not less than $200 over the average. I know that. I know what my house is worth. I know what I'm taxed on. I know what MPAC has put as the number. And I know it's not $1,700. Then I look at my region side. It's higher than the Port Colborne side. So whose taxes are higher here? Is it mine or the region's? Well, I think the regions are higher than the city of Port Colborne. In my case there, what I pay the region, and I pay the school board. So my overall tax bill was a little under $4,000, $3,900 and change, I think it was. Which is fine. I'll throw my fair share in. I can afford it. If that's what it costs. Bill Steele, live in Port Colborne, get his garbage picked up, have a great fire department, by the way. They were there when my kid got hit by a car. Have a great police department. Have good water, good sewers, you know, beautiful parks, beautiful facilities. I'll throw in my fair share. I don't think I'm paying more than my fair share. Could we always pay a little bit less? That's up to debate, and I'm not here to debate that portion. But I'm pretty happy with the taxes I pay. Some people aren't. If you live along the lake, I'm sure you're not, but hey, you chose to live in a pretty expensive house according to MPAC. Sometimes you're going to pay the consequences. And that's maybe the problem with MPAC. But again, provincial, not us. So I think I've laid it out pretty quickly. I think if I was going on the campaign trail door to door, I could probably cover it a little quicker than that. I think that took me about 15 or so minutes. But to me, that's what you got to do. You've got to get your facts straight. And my understanding is that every person running for council or mayor has been given the facts through the clerk's office, through your worship to the Madam Clerk. Have you been sending information out based on taxes, projects, debt, all that type of stuff to candidates? Has that been sent out?
Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, there is a process for candidate information requests. When I receive a request, the response is yes, circulated to all of the candidates registered.
So all of them get it, but we have been sending stuff out.
That's correct, yes.
And it has to do with debt, it has to do with taxes, project, all that type of stuff. That's what's been going out there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes.
And some of that stuff was put together by Mr. Sinez, actually a quite extensive package?
That's correct, yes.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Good job. See how great our staff is? But not just one. Pete Kenny calls, asks for something, everybody gets it. Not just one counselor, not just one candidate. All the candidates. Although you may be counselors now, you're still candidates. So, you're given the facts by the clerk, put together by our treasurer, and you still have the gall to mislead the taxpayer, the constituent that you're knocking on the door. Best comment I heard was 2 elections ago. There was a candidate that ran against me, bad-mouthed me at the door. His problem was he went into my neighborhood where half my family lives. So one sister talks to another sister and says, hey, so-and-so's coming along. And the lies about me, and the lies about the city of Port Colborne, and the lies about staff and taxes and all the same crap that you're hearing from the same candidate today really bothers me. The guy's comment to my one sister, he says, was Bill still related to everybody? She goes, no, but just on the street. You know, people talk. And I think the disgust out there is huge. As I said earlier, as I opened up with, I've never seen it in 17 years. I haven't seen it in 27 to 30 years that I've been involved in politics in Port Colborne. On the days I was on the outside looking and helping candidates, running all candidates' nights, great candidates, good people. But when you start lying and misrepresenting and pulling out parts of this and parts of that for your own use, it's not telling the truth. Tell the taxpayer the truth. That's all they ask for. Don't confuse them. Sell yourself. So, Your Worship, I wish all candidates good luck. Those that are running, I think it's an honorable thing for them to put their names forward, whether I agree with them or not. Good luck to everybody around this table. Hope you all get reelected. I really do. You've been good people. For those candidates that are running, good luck to you. Maybe you'll get elected, maybe you won't. But as I said, sell yourself. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Members of Council, any further new business? Councillor Butters?
Not new business, but just a comment. I want to thank Councillor Steele. When you said in the beginning you thought you could speak for many of us, I think you spoke for all of us. Very well said. Well done.
Thank you. And I'm sure those members that are running in this election, including myself, will have a lot to say after the election about some of this that's going on. I know me personally, I'm going to be making a few comments after the election, and I'm waiting till after the election because I don't think it has a part during an election. I respect the taxpayer too much and to take him for a ride. And for the most part, as Councillor Steele said, it's just a matter of getting out there and telling them how you're going to roll up your sleeves and get the job done versus having to get into that kind of arena. And so, but as I said, I'm sure a lot of us will have something to say after the election. So with that, no further new business. Members of Council, if I can, Mr. Heil, did you have a comment?
Just on staff update.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Go ahead. Oh, I forgot you were gone away for a couple of weeks. Yeah, you got a lot to say, eh? You know I got to poke you.
I know, Your Worship. I've been poked. Your Worship, late last week, beginning of this week, we received notification from the province on the Ontario Celebrate Ontario grant 2015-16. There isn't time to get a motion of council to go ahead and make the application. You won't have a meeting until after November. Deadline is November the 1st. I am going to authorize, I just want you to know that I will authorize an application to Celebrate Ontario for whatever we can get as part of the grant program. This council or the future council can always cancel it, but right now I'm going to proceed with the application. I wanted to let you know.
Thank you, Mr. Howell. Members of staff, any further updates? Dan, you good? Chris? Peter? Harry? Donnie? You're too quiet over there. You good? Chief, anything? You're good? Members, I'm gonna ask for a motion to adopt the minutes of the 22nd meeting regular committee of the whole dated September 22nd, 2014. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Bodnar, Councillor Doucette, are any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll move on now to the meat of tonight's agenda, which is the consideration of the committee items that you have lifted. We'll start off with item 5. Councillor Elliott, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mayor. Reading this will take almost as much time as Councillor Steele took, but not quite. Department of Engineering and Operations, Engineering Division Report number 2014-28, subject tender 2014-13, facility upgrades, multiple sites. A, that the Council of the City of Port Colborne award tender number 2014-13, facility upgrades, multiple sites to King Contractors and Niagara Limited of Niagara Falls, Ontario, for the price of $122,850 plus applicable taxes, and B, that funding for tender number 2014-13 be financed under accounts 3-310-33121-3328 Animal Shelter, with outstanding funding for the provisional items for the animal shelter be considered in the 2015 budget. 3, 700-33700-3401 the library, and 3600-33565-3328 Harbor Master, with the outstanding funding for the Harbor Master be considered in the 2015 budget. And C, that the appropriate bylaw whereby the city enters into a contract be prepared and submitted for execution by the mayor and city clerk.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder, please. Councillor Steele, questions or comments? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am raising this and hope that council will support this. And I'll speak to two of the upgrades that we're looking for. A, the West Street Harbor Master Building and the museum. I do sit on the museum board, and this has to do with the foundation for the log cabin that was donated to the museum. It was included in this tender because it was a cost-saving measure. If we could blend it into one bid, it would save the museum money and us money in the long term to encompass it all in one bid. So it did come back. This is a project that is near and dear to the hearts of the people at the museum. They really want to see this get put together. The log cabin is not open for the public because of the condition of it right now. It needs to be on the foundation to get up and running. But it just shows you the partnership that is ongoing over there at the museum and the library, because now the log cabin will now kind of sit behind the library, where it was kind of split before, but now they've got a synergy going on where it's the block that it is, where everybody's kind of working together. So it's great to see. So we really need to get this foundation in place so they can start finishing off the cabin itself. Secondly, I'll speak to the Harbor Master Building. This has been a long time coming. This is something that gets harped on at the BIA meetings, which I'm also a committee member of. They really want to have a washroom accessible downtown, not for themselves, but for people that visit town. It seems like it's the #1 request when people are in town is, where is a public washroom? For years and years, people have been using the restaurants and the businesses downtown as basically public washrooms. Even the people that dock their boats at the docks in the canal, there's nowhere to go. When City Hall closes, there goes all your public washroom facilities. So this is just another thing that we really need to have available. It needs to be accessible for everybody. It's great to see that. I'd like to see that, that we've got some of the project covered. Yes, we're going to have to allot some money out of the 15 budget to it, but it really is a project that will enhance downtown. It will really make the people in the BIA area extremely happy. I've kind of leaked it out to a few of them already. They're really excited about it. They can't say enough about the city moving forward with this. So I'm just bringing this forward and hope that everybody will support it, and we'll get moving on at least two of these. I know the animal shelter and the library are both projects that are near and dear to some other councillors. So if they would like to speak to that, great. If not, I'm just looking for support on it.
Thank you, Councillor. Further comments or questions? Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Worship. Just a point of clarification through you to Chris Lee. Chris, so location 1 and 2 can be done right away, and then 3 and 4 have to wait for the 15 budget deliberations. Am I reading this correctly?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Steele, that's correct.
Okay. So in essence, if we approve this tonight, you can move on those first two. Is there any way we can get, or are we waiting for spring for some of these anyways? That they wouldn't happen until spring, the next two, or is there a delay?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Steele. The two that already have sufficient funds within their budget, they can proceed immediately.
Yeah.
With the library and with the dog pound. The other projects, the contractor has agreed to hold his price until consideration is done in 2015 in that budget process. That being said, they wouldn't really get initiated at this point in time anyway if we had funds in the budget.
Okay, good. Thank you. I will be supporting this.
Councillor Butters?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm glad to hear of the animal shelter and the new windows. I wondered how much the Well Humane Society participates kind of in a wish list of what they hope will happen there. Are they involved when you do the kind of review of the facility?
Mr. Lee?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Butters. Yes, staff has been in contact with the Humane Society.
Okay, further questions or comments? Your pleasure to the motion. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 7. Councillor Kenny.
Thank you, Your Worship. Department of Engineering and Operations, Engineering Division, report number 2014-34, subject proposed sewer rotting policy. That council approved bylaw sewer rotting policy as presented. I just have a question about it.
You're good?
No, I have a question.
Okay, if I can have it seconded first. Councillor Butters. That's B. Councillor Kenny, go ahead.
Well, I'm glad to see this policy finally come forward. I really do, because I think that some of our residents really do not know what to do. This individual was in Ward 3. It was something that Frank and I dealt with. However, I guess I only have one question, Chris, and you probably would know that when the city crew came back and realized that they did the repairs because it was on our property, it says the city crew determined that the check valve at the house had been dislodged during the plumber's initial investigation, resulting in a second backup. The city crew corrected the valve that was dislodged by the plumber. I kind of just want to know why they didn't see that the first time.
Mr. Lee?
Did the first time, and then 2 days later there was, you know, a backup again, and I just want to know why they wouldn't have seen that the first time.
Mr. Lee?
Through Mr. Mayor to Councillor Kenny, my understanding of the situation was that the problem with the backup happened when the plumber did his initial work. That being said, we unblocked and took care of what we thought was on our side, thinking that he had done his job correctly.
Okay, but he didn't. Okay, and I just have one more question. When an individual calls City Hall after hours, they just know the City Hall number. They don't know anything else. Does that automatically go to our on-call person?
Mr. Lee?
To you, Mr. Mayor, when an after-hours call is made, it goes to our on-call foreman, at which point we do an investigation.
Right. So if they call City Hall, does it default there, or do they have to know that number?
It has to go through Public Works.
Well, see, that's, I would like to see. I know, but what if they don't know it? Everybody says just call the after-hours guy, but what if they don't know it? Or what if they don't have a phone book that they can get it out of? Or I'm just saying, is there a way that we can have a mechanism so that after hours, if there's a problem and they call City Hall because they know it's 835-2900, it would default to the on-call?
Mr. Sinez?
Thank you.
Through Mr. Mayor, if they do call City Hall and it's after hours, then our message for the after hours message does give the on-call number.
Thank you. Thanks.
You obviously know the number because you've never had to call City Hall. Thank you, Councillor Kenny. Any further questions or comments to the report? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you. We'll now move on to item 10. Councillor Steele.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll bring this forward for Councillor Butters' conflict. Carol Madden, Poppy Chairman, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 56, request for proclamation of annual Poppy campaign, October 31st, 2014 to November 11th, 2014. That October 31st to November 11th, 2014 be proclaimed as Poppy Week in the City of Port Colborne in accordance with the request received from Carol Madden, Poppy Chairman, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 56, Port Colborne.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Do we have a seconder for that, please? Councillor Danch. Questions or comments? Members of Council, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any notices of motion this evening? Motion to adjourn this portion of tonight's agenda. That was pretty quick. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to our council portion of tonight's agenda. Madam Clerk, are there any addendum items?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One item this evening, the addition of item D to the closed session agenda, a verbal report from the Director of Planning and Development regarding correspondence received concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land.
Thank you, Ashley. Members of Council, if I can have a motion to confirm the agenda, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Bodner. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Disclosures of interest. Councillor Butters.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My number 10 again, an indirect pecuniary interest as I'm a member of the Branch 56 Royal Canadian Legion.
Thank you, Councillor Butters. Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a pecuniary interest in camera items B, C, and D as they, I guess I can't stay, as they relate to, yeah.
It's okay, we'll
have
fix
fun.
it later.
Yeah, I know, I bet you will. As they relate to transactions in real estate that I may or may not, how can I put that? Be involved with. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. And just for the information of council as well as those in the public, when a councillor does have a conflict of interest, whether it be an open session or closed session, they are not distributed the report. Although in open session you can get a copy of the report, or anybody can, but in closed session the councillor does not get a copy of those reports and or any information having to do with those reports. So I just want everybody to be clear on that. With that, any further conflicts? Disclosures of interest, members? With none, I'll move on to the adoption of the minutes of the 29th meeting regular of council of September 22nd, 2014. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Desmarais. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Are there any items requiring a separate discussion? Councillor Steele.
Item 10 for the conflict.
Thank you. Any further items? If I can have a motion to accept the remainder of the items, please. Councillor Desmarais. Councillor Doucette. Are there any questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Councillor Steele.
Thank your worship again for Councillor Butters' conflict. That October the 31st to November 11th, 2014 be proclaimed as Poppy Week in the City of Port Colborne in accordance with the request received from Carol Madden, Poppy Chairman, Royal Canadian Legion, Branch 56, Port Colborne.
Thank you, Councillor Steele. Our seconder, please. Councillor Danch. Keeping you up. Keeping you up. I have moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That'll be carried. Thank you. With that, dealing with all the items, members, I do have two proclamations this evening, and I will be looking for a mover and seconder. The first proclamation is Poppy Week, that I, Mayor Vance M. Badaway, do hereby proclaim October 31st, 2014 to November 11th, 2014 as Poppy Week here in the City of Port Colborne. This in honor of the men and women from Port Colborne who gave their lives during the two world wars, the Korean War and the Afghanistan War. Further, that the citizens of the City of Port Colborne are encouraged to participate in Remembrance Day services to be held at H.H. Noel Park on Tuesday, November 11th, 2014 at 10:45 a.m. Harry, is there a ceremony going on down in Cedar Bay? Yes. The same time? I'm assuming there would be. Barbara, that would be the same time? Okay, so I'd just like to add to that that there's also a ceremony. I'm not going to change the proclamation. But I do want to add as an FYI that there will be also a ceremony on November 11th at 10:45 at the Cenotaph in Cedar Bay that I think both Barbara and Ron attend, if I'm not mistaken. And of course, they take care of things over there while I and others take care of things over at the park. Actually, will I still be around then, November 11th? I guess I will be. Yeah, I guess I will be. So with that, members, motion. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Steele, Councillor Kenny. All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Thank you, members. My second proclamation this evening is having to do with National Child Day. That whereas National Child Day is a day to celebrate children and demonstrate our respect for their rights and their aspirations. And whereas National Child Day is celebrated throughout the world, commemorating the adoption of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of the Child in 1959 and the United Nations adoption of the Convention of the Rights of the Child in 1989. And whereas National Child Day holds significance for Niagara, as it is one of the first communities in Canada to institute a Charter of Rights for children and for teens. And whereas the Charter has since been endorsed by the Niagara region, including all 12 municipalities, all local school boards, and several local businesses and community organizations. Now therefore, I, Mayor Vincent Badaway, do hereby proclaim November 20th, 2014 as National Child Day here in the city of Port Colborne in recognition of our youngest citizens. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Bodner. Questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. We'll now move on to the minutes of boards, commissions, and agencies, and I will read them in block and accept the motion in block if you don't mind, unless you have a question to one of them. Raise your hand and get in there. The minutes of the Environmental Advisory Committee meeting dated June 11th, 2014. The minutes of the Canal Days Advisory Committee meeting dated July 16th, 2014. The minutes of the Port Colborne Gateway Business Improvement Area Board of Management meeting dated June 3rd, 2014. And finally, the minutes of the Port Colborne Historical and Marine Museum Board of Management meeting dated July 15th, 2014. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Elliott, Councillor Bodner, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Notices of motion. Are there any notices of motion? With none, members of council, I will ask the clerk to present the bylaws. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaws be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 6141-10714 being a bylaw to authorize entering into a contract agreement with King Contractors regarding tender 2014-13 facility upgrades. Bylaw 6142-10814 being a bylaw to amend the assessment schedule to the levy the costs incurred in constructing drainage works known as the Barris 2007 West Branch West Municipal Drain, and finally bylaw 6143-10914 being a bylaw to adopt a sanitary sewer rotting policy.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Kenny, Councillor Desmarais, questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Madam Clerk, the confirmatory bylaw, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that the following bylaw be read 3 times and finally passed. Bylaw 6144-11014 being a bylaw to adopt, ratify, and confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the City of Port Colborne at special and regular meetings of October 14, 2014.
Thank you, Ashley. Mover and seconder, please. Councillor Desmarais, Councillor Doucette, questions or comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. Members of council, I'm now going to ask for a motion to go into closed session. And for those members of the public that are watching, closed session to address the following matters. A, the minutes of the closed session portions of the September 15th, 2014 special meeting of council. B, the Department of Planning and Development Services Report number 2014-73 concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. C, confidential correspondence received by my office on September 25th, 2014 concerning the potential disposition concerning that's enough out of you. Concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to the Municipal Act 2001. Did you ever have your lips skip? Yeah, they just keep going, but nothing's coming out. Subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. And finally, D, a verbal report from the Director of Planning and Development Services regarding correspondence received concerning the potential disposition of city-owned land pursuant to Municipal Act 2001, subsection 2392C, a proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land by the municipality or local board. There's too many decisions in there. Anyways, with that, members of council, if I can have a mover and seconder, please, to go into closed session. Councillor Doucette, Councillor Danch, are there any questions or comments? With none, all those in favor? Opposed? That will be carried. And with that, folks, have a wonderful, wonderful week.